The light commuter plane was buffeted by so much turbulence that Owen Allison found it difficult to read, so he watched the terrain below through the bouncing window. The West Virginia landscape was crisscrossed with tree-topped mountain ridges, as if God had wadded up his plans for a level forest and tossed the crinkled remnants into the Ohio River Valley. Late summer leaves and late afternoon shadows obscured the winding roadways and other signs of civilization in the hollows below the ridges. One rounded knoll, a reseeded and reclaimed strip mine, lower than the surrounding peaks, looked like a pale green sombrero from the air. The plane lurched toward a tiny airport set precariously on a lopped-off mountaintop, and the pitching and tossing of the descent caused Owen to shut his eyes and clutch his armrests. His mother would be down below, waiting, with some secret she'd found impossible to share over the phone. There were certain words she couldn't bring herself to say. In her lifetime she'd survived scarlet fever, buried a stillborn child, and fed hot meals to divers dragging the river for her husband, but she still used code words for anything the least bit unpleasant. Owen guessed that the unspoken word behind her current concern was cancer, probably a recurrence of the colon cancer she'd fought off 5 years earlier, but all she would say on the phone was that she'd had a tiff with her doctor and it would be best if he could come home for a bit. The plane bounced twice on the runway, swerved, and then righted itself, drawing a round of applause from the other 4 passengers. Owen opened his eyes and scanned the glassed-in airport window for a sign of his mother, but the glare of the setting sun off the window pane made it impossible to see inside. As Owen stepped down from the plane, Ruth Allison appeared in the terminal doorway, clutching a pale blue cardigan around her shoulders. She looked frail to her son, but it might have been the severe way she'd swept her gray hair back into a tight bun, or the way the oversized cardigan dwarfed her hunched shoulders. Owen crossed the tarmac and hugged his mother, then took her by the hand and led her to the long aluminum bin that served as a baggage claim area. "I've got a surprise for you," he said as the electric cart hauled the baggage wagon up to the bin. The kennel was the last piece of luggage to be unloaded into the bin. Owen opened it, and a small black-and-white dog burst out, tail wagging, and stood on its hind legs, pawing the air in front of Ruth. "Oh, my land, you've brought Buster," Ruth said. She bent and gathered the excited animal into her arms. "But you still don't cut him like a poodle." "Those frilly cuts don't suit his name or his personality." Owen had brought the dog because he didn't know how long he was going to be needed in West Virginia, and he didn't want to leave it in California for an indefinite period. He could see from the smile on his mother's face that it had been exactly the right thing to do. Ruth had kept Buster for 2 years when Owen was working for the Department of Transportation and living in a succession of Washington, D.C. apartments. When he'd severed ties with the federal bureaucracy to restart a consulting business in the San Francisco Bay Area, he had reclaimed Buster, causing separation anxiety in both his mother and the dog. Ruth hoisted Buster to face level, nuzzled his nose, and then carried him to her blue Toyota, which was parked in a handicapped space right in front of the airport. She handed Owen the keys, saying, "It's getting on toward dark. You better drive." It was the first time in his memory she hadn't insisted on driving on her home turf. As Owen loaded his garment bag into the trunk, he saw his mother snatch the blue plastic handicap symbol from her rearview mirror and stash it in the glove compartment. When he slipped behind the steering wheel, she had Buster in her lap, scratching his stomach. Owen fastened his seatbelt. "How are you feeling, Mom?" Ruth concentrated on Buster's stomach. "Let's not talk about me. The doctor will see us first thing tomorrow." The dog lay on its back, pawing contentedly at the air. "I'm surprised you didn't leave Buster with Judith," Ruth said.
Everything's all right there, I hope?